I got to do the smell test on this one. Smells like innovation. Innovation. This is something new right here.
I'm so excited that I got a chance to check this out. Like, I've been dying to open up that box and see what this phone looks like in person. It's definitely way cooler than I thought, and this design has by far exceeded my expectations. Like, the photos and videos, they really don't do it justice. It looks incredible.
But there's a lot to be said about how well this phone has been put together. Like, from literally, there's no bloatware installed, there's no, like, nothing version of your mail or browser or photos or anything else like LinkedIn or other random apps pre-installed. And nothing's version of Android is so clean that the interface does absolutely fly. Like, along with that 120 Hz display, it's a really smooth implementation that does feel like a nice experience, particularly as an iPhone user.
You got Gorilla Glass 5 plate in front and back, and I've got to say, several weeks on, this thing still looks box fresh, no scratches, scuffs, nicks or dents to speak of, and that's despite the fact it's taken several tumbles off my sofa arm and a couple of tables.
But it also has a high refresh rate. Now, it's not LTPO, but it will dynamically bump between 120 Hz and 60 Hz depending on what you're doing, and it has a 240 Hz touch sample rate, so it is very responsive and smooth, especially in just regular day-to-day stuff.
It's not quite iPhone quality. The glass on the front is Gorilla Glass 5, which is not as strong as Apple's ceramic shield. But hey, this is a £399 phone here in the UK. This is $779. And so for the price, I would go as far as to say that this is a better designed phone.
The near stock and bloatware-free Nothing OS has been a delight to use. I also found most of Nothing's cosmetic tweaks to Android 12 to be very refreshing instead of unnecessary.
Okay, so we got YouTube on the bottom, Apple on the top. True split screen multitasking.
If you boost the brightness yourself all the way up to maximum levels, well, no worries seeing it outdoors. Even when you're wearing shades, this thing is brighter than the sun.
Videos and photos do not do this justice, because when you're actually looking at this in person, like, there's depth that you can actually see. Like, you can see inside of this thing. It's really cool.
Nothing went for what is essentially a pure stock Android experience with some very small tweaks. Tweaks such as some custom widgets, and then a custom camera and a custom voice recorder app. They both use haptics, and I was quite surprised in terms of the Nothing Phone 1's haptics. They're actually pretty good considering the price. They're almost as good as on the iPhone.
Okay, so battery life on the Nothing Phone has also been actually pretty good so far. I've seen 4.5 to 5 hours of screen on time on this phone, which for me has been good enough to get me through a full day of using this phone. And actually, I even got through 2 days on a single charge, so much so that it made me wonder if the phone was actually calculating the screen on time properly, because this screenshot of 4.5 hours of screen on time was from 2 full days of using this phone. Even when watching videos from full screen, watching the Stranger Things finale on this phone, still pretty awesome. And I'm not seeing any significant battery drain on like specific apps across the board.
I found that the connectivity has been reliable throughout, and the Nothing Phone doesn't even begin to sweat throughout game after game of Call of Duty Mobile, PUBG, all those online shooty efforts.
For getting a phone call, the lights all just light up and sync with whatever ringtone you have. Sweet. The exclamation mark at the bottom will also light up to indicate your charge status, and then it can show you again with a convenient little bump. I definitely like that a lot. And then it'll also light up when you talk to Google Assistant. So if you say, "Hey hot word, what's the weather tomorrow?" You can see it lights up with a little feedback as you're talking, then it reads you your answer out loud. It's basically the defining feature of this phone.
This is one of the first Android phones that doesn't have a chin at the bottom. Almost all of them, whether they're $200 or $1,200, they make this bottom bezel thicker to leave space for their flat display to connect to the phone's motherboard. But the fact that this company has not done that, and instead paid twice as much money to buy a flexible display for the sole purpose of being able to bend that display around the bottom bezel just to keep the borders symmetrical all round, it's a touch that I really appreciate. And so even next to the iPhone 13, which is twice the price, the Nothing genuinely holds its own. Its display is less bright, but it has twice the refresh rate. It uses slightly less high-end materials, but it's got so much more design flair.
So when I first started using the Nothing Phone 1, camera was that one area where I was worried that this phone would disappoint, but I must say that Nothing has really surprised me with its ability. After the latest update, its 50 megapixel main camera takes great photos in ample lighting conditions. Images have plenty of details, they have nice colors, highlight control, and dynamic range.
One thing that seems kinda unique to the Nothing OS is the fact that you can have enlarged folders and enlarged icons, which means that your most important apps get prominent display on the home screen itself.
It also has an NFT tracker to show them off in 5 different sizes, and you can even track their prices on your home screen with their native NFT gallery. I'm pretty hyped about that, not gonna lie.
And the lights do actually get bright enough to use as a fill light. That's one of the features. And so in really dark places, really, with a very close-up subject, I can actually say that it is better to use than a normal flash.
This tiny company, they actually contracted 500 engineers just for software optimization. That's 500 people working at the same time to make this one phone as fast and stable as possible. And you can feel it. And then on top of that, even though the Phone 1 does have a very ordinary amount of RAM and storage, it's fast, flagship quality RAM and storage.
I'm also really digging its portrait shots. The way it maintains skin tone, background exposure, and edge detection is really impressive. Low-light photos from the Phone 1 are quite nice as well. Nothing's image processing does a good job at preserving details, whereas the photos are not grainy or anything like that either.
So not only are the lights going, but there's also haptic feedback happening.
On a sustainability note, the Nothing Phone is made from 100% recycled aluminum, these rails, and also an impressive 50+% of the plastics inside are made from bio-based and recycled sources. Also, the box that came in is very thin and small, which of course is too small to include a charging brick, but it is fully recyclable paper and cardboard, so I can appreciate that.
Another big display difference is the refresh rate. So the iPhone has the standard, 60 Hertz refresh rate panel, whereas Nothing has 120 Hertz, which I was actually not expecting to see. I was expecting something like 90 Hertz, but I gotta say, just using the two, the Nothing Phone feels far more fluid and actually faster to use than the iPhone, despite it having a much weaker processor.
And also, highly impressively, you've got support for 15-watt wireless charging, which is something that next to no rivals offer. Again, only like the iPhone SE 2022, spit, spit, spit.
And more importantly, the Nothing OS's animation and UI is so smooth, it's so clean, it's extremely responsive compared to sometimes janky animations on One UI that especially happens on Samsung's mid-range phones.
Into the portrait mode, I was actually surprised, as it was better on the Nothing Phone with better edge detection and also a much sharper image overall. The front-facing camera is surprisingly also better on the Nothing Phone. It's wider angle, it was sharper, and the colors also looked better than on the iPhone. And I was also surprised to see that we actually have a macro mode on the Nothing Phone, which the iPhone of course doesn't have.
So it's obvious by now that the Nothing Phone 1 easily stands out against other mid-range phones in 2022. That semi-transparent design mixed with all those LED lights sure do offer a breath of fresh air.
Basically, I'm just happy there's no bloatware. It's just a very clean, reasonable, refined Android experience.
But this phone is really pushing the boundaries as far as design is concerned, because they did a lot of really unique things in this.
Overall, this is a definite win for $400. I would say buy this immediately.
This is honestly such an amazing product, especially at this price point. Even if you're an iPhone user, I think this is a great option for you, especially if you have an older iPhone. Keep in mind that the iPhone SE 3 costs £420, so this is more expensive than the Nothing Phone 1, and to be honest, it doesn't even compare.